And it is that horrifying face that is the first introduction to SOMA. On the menu screen, on the very first, you boot up the game and you choose something to play.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what you are greeted with, which is just so unsettling.
That looks like the first ultrasound picture I think I saw of my kid at like 4 months.
That is horrifying.
I have an ultrasound picture of our son, and it was like taken partway through his head, so it's just a skull.
It looks terrifying. I'm not kidding.
This kid's gonna love Halloween. I will play this game with him sometime.
As we get better with these screenshots, we've got to place them over our different faces.
Ooh, like get what, Snapchat filters?
Oh yeah,
for each of us.
I love that.
All of a sudden, my head starts splitting apart. You see the little red glowing thing inside. Tells you I was a robot all along.
The whole time. It explains so much.
It does.
No face on jokes.
I love this game because I really relate to it.
On a deep
I twitch a lot.
level.
Yeah. Your vision doesn't get blurry?
Ryan's glitching again, guys.
Well, hey, cheers to you, gentlemen.
Hey, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Welcome back to Videogame Sommelier. This is our third conversation on SOMA, but only our second on this channel. And we realized now that we're not only doing audio podcasts, but we are doing video, we should continue to use the possibilities for this visual medium. And so for those of you who haven't played SOMA, we want to give you just a little taste of what SOMA looks like. So I am going to share my screen and just go through a short slideshow of sorts, beginning with that very familiar opening logo of SOMA.
Horror.
That's the lobby.
The lobby. Welcome to Theta. Just
where you meet that really friendly person.
Yeah, they always want to help you. By help you, stab you in the back and eat you.
The name of this image is Friend. So
that's Grand Central Station.
Hi, friend.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this looks like pre-production art, right? That doesn't look like it's directly from the game, but...
Yeah, but that character ended up in the game, and all he wanted to do was give your face a hug.
I don't know. I feel like I don't remember because I was too busy half closing my own eyes running through this level.
That was the last monster in the game right there. Yoshido or something. Yeah.
No, I did not see him much. I run first and ask questions later in this game, so that
this is just from the developer's personal scuba trip.
That's right.
Yes. But what I had heard was that the developers, Frictional Games, had created an engine for underwater, and they sort of built the game up from that idea that, hey, we can make something underwater. And the underwater scenes are pretty stunning.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Especially at the end, which we get to talk about today.
Yay!
Well, having never done anything more than like snorkeling, I can confidently say this is accurate.
This is exactly what underwater top
This is exactly what I think it would look like. Exactly. But really, like the physics and the visuals look incredible. I mean, you really legit feel like you're underwater.
And you feel safer, even though the ocean, can be such a dangerous place. You feel safer outside because when you're inside, you're having to deal with things like this.
Is this the lady I killed?
That's her. That's a shot of Amy.
I forgot I unplugged her.
We're not allowed to die.
And then this is a shot of when our screen would start glitching because something was coming around the corner.
The flesher you're not supposed to look at.
Yep. And the horrifying thing, it was so strange because this game pretty much encourages you to kind of get your character into a corner and look at the wall and kind of crouch. So you're pretty much in the fetal position in the corner. It's like, this can't be the way to solve, but that's the way to get around.
I mean, that's how I got through school, but it does work.
Some more of, oh, there it is, Upsilon.
Yeah, this is wait, can you go back to that image real quick?
Absolutely.
I think this is this the first shot where you realize that you're underwater? Or maybe you, I can't remember.
It is the first shot of the ocean. They've got a little like junction where you come out and you see those drawings of the weird fish and you can kind of see the surface above you. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the part of the game where I feel like, well, and maybe it's not as evident in this picture, but when you play the game, it's very light outside. In fact, it almost feels like you're not that far away from the surface of the water compared to where you are throughout the rest of the game.
And there's a pleasant glow up there. I mean,
yeah,
exactly
right.
Surface.
It feels like maybe I'm 100 feet down. No big deal.
Right, and then even the light out the window to the right, you can see that it's illuminating a fair amount of space, right? And that changes. Jimmy, you were talking last time about how the spaces and the locations become more and more oppressive and smaller and darker. I hadn't really thought of how light was carrying through the water as we went deeper and deeper.
Yeah, and right here, like literally, look at that. The whole thing is glass. I mean, and it can be because the pressure of the water is not that bad where you are here. So the further down you go, the thicker the walls have to be, and the more caved in you feel.
The longer the doors take to open, while crazy octopi monsters come to eat your face.
So
hit the button and take another lap around the whole station.
We're taking another lap, people.
So what? This is was this the thermal reactor?
No, this is from Star Wars, dude.
Oh, I pulled up the wrong stuff. I'm sorry. The Federation. No, that's Star Trek.
Yeah, we launched our quantum torpedoes into those holes.
I love that this image is just a little off balance because that's one of the dynamics of the game. You have the ability to lean over. And so I spent a fair amount of time peeking around corners. And this is a great example because I imagine in the game, this is either where you're coming from another area and you have to go downstairs, or you just randomly walked up a stairwell that goes nowhere and you're kind of stuck.
So cool bit of trivia on this image. Apparently, Carl Semken, who's that guy who thinks he's a robot or who thinks he's human, but he's actually a robot. Okay. There is a way to solve that scene without electrifying him.
No way.
Yeah. All you had to do was just not electrify him and then go around the corner and find the other button that would do it.
Dude, I just think I killed about everything in this game.
Oh yeah, but
even
then
myself.
If you do that, this is the awesome thing. You get rewarded by having that little monster creature come and chase you up there on the second level. So either way, something is going to horrify you.
Got it. Yeah, because I remember seeing in that puzzle the grid where it was like, hey, there's 2 different places you can get power from. And I probably just didn't follow the instructions very well to get to the other one. And I found the one near the guy, and it went poorly for him.
So sorry, Carl.
I went on to the next area with every intention to come back for him. And now there are like 2 versions of me that still might. We'll get to that later. So, it goes without saying, but, spoiler warning, we're just going to be talking about the end of this really, really cool game. So, and what was the name of the game again?
SOMA.
Oh, man.
I feel like at random times you've just got to flash that really fast, or other little messages. Yeah.
You know what? That is about how the game feels. Yeah. The screen glitches on. I'm not kidding. For anybody who hasn't played this, the first time you boot it up, the loading screen, like the little bar starts to turn and glitch. And I'm not kidding. I thought my screen was crapping out on me. I was like, you've got to be kidding. Not now. And it was part of the game. I legitimately thought my screen or my PlayStation was going down.
Yeah, they hook you from the loading screen. Yeah, before there's even a menu, they're already telling the story. Something's wrong.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yes. I was trying to flash images, Jimmy, and I flashed up the Powered by StreamYard, and it didn't have the same impact.
If you do it
some
again,
of the other images. But
oh man.
So to recap,
yes.
When we last left our intrepid adventurers, they were venturing into the abyss. they were going down past the midnight zone. And did you know it could get darker than midnight?
Oh, I did not know. I know that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the bottom where the glowy things grow.
Well, I mean, thank the Lord for the construction workers that graciously planted the lights for your pathway.
Yes.
You know, the city workers were great for this.
I'm not going to thank them. They could have made an enclosed hallway.
Or twice the number of lights.
Or twice the number of lights, yeah.
And, you know, who knew the bottom of the ocean had weather? I mean, my word, there was I guess you would call it, what is it? What's the wave called where it sucks you out in the ocean?
Yeah, like a riptide?
Yeah, riptide. Couldn't think of the word. It feels like you have this massive riptide on the bottom and sand starts blowing everywhere. And because you're in a suit, it's like sticking to your little face shield so you can't see anything. And that stresses you out even more. And
so the genius thing I love about the Abyss and why it's like my favorite moment in the game is because they totally changed the way depth works visually. The visual perception of depth in the game. So usually like things kind of get blurry at a moderate distance from you, and then they begin to clear up as you get closer. And this is just the visual effects of being so far underwater. The water itself and the pressure of the water is getting between you and, you know, your clear sight of something in the distance. But then when you get to the abyss, things remain blurry or are very blurred out, even as up until it's like within an arm's reach away, and then you can see it clearly. So it's so disorienting, and it feels very claustrophobic.
Yeah, very much. You know, it's funny you say that because I didn't think about this a whole lot until now. You're in a suit, and even being in the suit gives you a feeling much like you're like in an astronaut suit. You can hear all the mechanics that are
the Darth Vader suit, right?
Yeah, and the water even sounds like kind of muffled outside, and all the things that are happening, and so that in itself adds to the feeling of just everything caved in on you.
It would have been crazy if they had played with that a little bit with, like, you know, if a spider had been inside your helmet and, you know, your character, like, tried to reach at it and couldn't because it's under the glass. God. You know what? I'm glad they didn't do that.
They knew. They knew that would have put us over the edge. It would have put me over the edge.
So as we're heading into the abyss, we go down that elevator, and then one of the horrible monsters, like, speaks English to us, which I think is new, right? We haven't had a full-on monster talk.
Well, all of the robots, right, are some gradation of monster. He's, you know, the question is how insane is he? Because they all kind of know some English. Okay. And they've all been jabbering some, right? Like those robots that are wandering around and they're kind of mumbling to themselves.
Okay. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah.
What?
I just heard the, you know, that part, but.
Well, that's like the proxy and the
that's them. That's the people. No, that's the recordings that it's projecting out. Is when they're waking up from bed. But am I correct in understanding this? Because I had long thought that the monster, and as you learn, the WoW, as they call it in the game, to help keep these monsters alive and help program all this stuff, are the monsters just replaying like broken projections from these brain scans of like these people and stuff?
What do you mean by replay?
I don't know. It just sounds like these are like recordings or like phrases and stuff that maybe because some of the things these robots said made it sound like they were things you would have heard a live person say in the midst of living in the underwater like world. And then I'm hearing it again, just all this time later.
I actually think they're meant to be, what's the word? Contemporaneous, or, you know, no, is that a word?
You can make it. We can make the rules here.
Hey, there you go.
Flash that word on the screen real quick, and then.
So it's, but like, I think that these people are in various states of awareness about whether they are, you know, inhabiting a human body or not, right?
Sure,
and therefore they're kind of rambling most of the time because they don't know exactly what's going on. And so they're kind of repeating the kinds of things they would say on the job.
Right. And so hence my thought, because like I'm thinking back specifically to, to when I heinously beat that little helper bot to death to get apart from it. No, there was another, I don't know, big mechanical robot that was like flying around and he was saying like curse words and stuff. And I don't know. It sounded to me when I was listening to it, I thought, okay, it's clearly in my mind a replay of whoever's persona he's got programmed into him from, 100 years earlier, however long it's been since all this stuff is blown up, a month, a week, a year, who knows? And so I had thought for some of these monsters, not all, but maybe some, were hearing past memories or replays, just like jumping out and glitching in and out.
Yeah, no, I think this is just real time gradations of people and neurons, right? Brain scans showing up in these robots, because that's the WoW's project, right? He's not simulating people. He's
preserving.
And I'm using he. It's probably an it, right? Like it is. Well, it's creating some kind of life, and actually, this is an interesting segue into perhaps the biggest thing I wanted to bring up this evening, and it rocked me when I started thinking about this. So I'm going to just say it. So you guys can speak to your own beliefs, right? But it's commonly accepted that people, human beings, evolved somehow from other species, and that who we are today is kind of the result of some kind of experimentation on the part of life to turn us into who we are. Now, you could say God oversaw that process, or you could say that process was guided by natural forces. But if you look at, say, the record of biological life, you'd see just hints at the idea that all things came into being through an ancestry, right? Now, what I find really interesting about this game and where it becomes horrifying is because the WoW is doing that with machines. It is evolving them. It is experimenting with them. It is testing and searching, and it's creating all of these inferior and horrible kinds of suffering, these realities that people are being birthed into that is just a kind of living hell. And also, he made you, Simon Jarrett, and he made Catherine. And these are also his creations, again.
Are they? Or did they just somehow, I guess they'd have to be.
They'd have to be.
How else would she be on the Omicron?
And that's what I think you have to wrestle with here, is that you too are a WoW creation, which then kind of changes the narrative a little bit in that final confrontation with the WoW, where Johan Ross is saying, "Kill it, stop it, do not let your, thrust your arm into it and poison it to death.
Stay on target."
Now, this seems like, yeah, we absolutely need to kill this thing, right? Because it's screwing up. But not only are you a creation of the WoW, but the whole ARC project is inspired by, or in fact based on, the WoW's experimentation. And you get this through audio logs in the game. You get this through the Vivarium video, and then that mini series that they published on YouTube. And it's just a fact of the game that the whole idea of the ARC project came about because Catherine looked at what the WoW had done to create a simulated existence and thought, oh, we can mimic that, but create a paradise for ourselves. And so instead of letting the WoW continue the iteration along that line, she just goes and makes, their own human version of it.
Yeah. And then it leads you to think about all all of the horrible decisions you made during the game.
Oh, I know,
no,
right?
but really though, like that's I honestly think that's a large point of the game, right? Like you find all these characters and robots, and some are clearly less human than others, and some are very much like humans being preserved. And so then you play this balance of what makes you human, what makes you a person. And so
it's almost like the WoW birthed you in order to adjudicate that, right?
Right.
Which experiments were successes and which were failures?
Absolutely. And at what point are you a human and not? You're playing as a robot, but you don't know that for like, the first third or fourth of the game or whatever it is. You legitimately think you're a person. So that begs the question, which we talked about in the last session and we'll probably continue to reiterate in this, is where is the line? And then you think back to all the decisions you made, and spoiler alert, I think I killed about everybody in this game during my journey,
including the WoW, right? You killed the WoW.
Of course, I killed the WoW. But to be fair,
here's what that means, right? Like, you looked at the suffering of all this iteration and said, "Oh my gosh, this is a living hell. We cannot let this stand. We're going to kill the creator of it."
Right.
And our own biological coming into being is based on an iteration of suffering through, animal predation, and here we are today. Do we grapple with the suffering of that? Do we resent the one who created that? That's that's like the creeping level horror of this game and the decisions it's having you make.
Yeah. It starts to feel like Greco-Roman mythology, right? Like, I'm going to climb Mount Olympus and kill Zeus, because I disagree with this, and there's a more philosophical level of, why would God allow this kind of suffering? If we look at all the horrors and atrocities in our world and say, if God exists, I don't want to know him, So there are different levels to that, but I had not gone through that chain of thought that, like, I am a child of the WoW. You think that
I was just running from screaming things, man.
Yeah, exactly. I gave an arm and a leg to destroy the WoW. Or maybe just an arm.
I'd give an arm. I'd give my right arm. I'd give my left arm.
I do have questions about that.
Oh, man.
We'll get to that later.
Well, Johan supposedly, leading you on this path, and then right after you kill the thing, he's like, "No, you can't live."
I know. It was like, you have to do it, and oh, by the way, well, so then I had the question: in killing the WoW, because I had the same thought. I was like, "Whoa, dude, what the heck, man? I thought we were bros, and then you want to do me like that?" But obviously not. So, my question then was like, because he said, you now have to die because you're, what did he say? Like, you're now the iteration of the WoW.
You're immune. You have the immunity to the, more or less, the kind of virus that you'd installed in the WoW. So if the WoW got a hold of you, then the WoW could more or less invent its. It's basically setting up Soma 2.
Ooh. So is it possible to not kill the WoW? I heard somewhere that you could just like walk away.
Really?
Yeah.
And I don't totally know why one would walk away unless you were just replaying and trying to see all the different things you could do. But what would be the motivation of not killing the WoW?
So that's a super interesting question, because if you go online, you can actually find people discussing how the WoW is not the bad guy in this.
Yeah, should the WoW have been killed?
And the gist of the argument is that the WoW is actually succeeding at its task of creating, kind of new life out of the machines and the brain scans. And that we may resent its kind of 2-year process of getting there, but I mean, 2 years is a blink of an eye. And why are we really getting down on its failures? When in fact the ARC project, you as Simon Jarrett, are all examples of success that the WoW has created.
right? And when the other option is the complete non-existence of the human race, because we're dealing with a cataclysmic situation up on the surface. So it's not like this is just a mad scientist doing a rogue experiment. It's like this is the last chance humans have to live physically. The arc
even though they're totally warped beyond anything we would know. Yeah. Oh man, that's a crazy thought.
I mean, the WoW looks disgusting, right? And Johan Ross is not making any friends either. He's he's super moody.
Yeah. He deserved to get eaten by that huge worm or whatever happened in that moment. The anglerfish comes back. So was he in that little glass room?
That was what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, he like warps in and out and he's talking briefly to you. Okay. I thought the same thing.
Honestly, it's kind of a half-developed moment of the game. It feels a little tacked on. And you can't fault these guys for just go broke or go home, right? They just really throw it all at you, and that's kind of what I love about the game. It gives you just so much to think about when you're done. And I think the heart of the story is in Simon and Catherine, the survivors or not, right?
Right.
And how you make sense of their existence as just copies along the way.
Yep. And just copies along the way, throughout the entire game, we control 4 iterations of Simon. It's really interesting because the game presents it as a seamless experience, which it would have been for one consciousness.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, they have very diverging experiences. The original Simon Jarrett, we hear him die in a recording. Then there's the one on, what is it, Theta, that we either kill or don't kill.
Oh, yeah, and what's the name of that? It's not Omicron. Oh, it is Omicron.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Omicron.
I've lost they all sound
right before the elevator down.
It's all Greek to me.
I know.
Theta is when the weird proxy creatures are creeping around, and it just takes way too long to escape them. It was Jimmy's favorite level.
Oh my god, this game! I'm surprised I didn't just wake everyone in the house at night when I played this. The amount of times.
Whether by your screams or just to have someone. Just go wake them up, and I need to be with family.
My wife hates cuddling, so when I climb in bed and hold her, she's like, get off. Like, wow, it's so scary tonight. I'm just kidding. No, but oh man, they do a good job of warping these things and making them terrifying. And I have to go back to this for just a moment because we need to talk about the encounter in the abyss. So as you come off this elevator, you're on the bottom of the ocean, right? You're where James Cameron loves to take his submarines and land and talk about it. And you get out, and they have these magical little lights that someone installed, and there's like an underwater storm. And then you have this little helper robot that gets eaten by the giant, underwater snake monster.
You have to stick close to the light because basically the WoW has infected the deep sea creatures. And one of them is like a giant segmented worm that is prowling, and it won't go near the lights. But there are some lights that they've kind of broke.
Right.
Yeah.
And in this moment where it takes your little helper friend out, you run into a cave, and the cave is so claustrophobic and so disgusting.
Well, you turn on your light switch. You turn on your headlamp.
Right. And you see these wonderful little crawly, it's just awful. And so as you're going through this cave, you feel more and more claustrophobic. And
they're spiders, Jimmy.
It's
They're
just
deep sea spiders that look like the alien in Alien.
I hate spiders.
The head, the face thing.
This was like the worst possible level. And you exit this cave at warp speed. I did. Yeah. I was running. I didn't care what I met until I got outside and was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. There is the light. I'm going to run straight to the light. Oh, God, fangs and huge eye. And I got killed by an anglerfish. The first thing they give you when you exit this cave is a freaking anglerfish.
The game tried to warn you.
Oh.
There was a console log that showed you the very deep sea creatures that you'd meet down there, and one of them was the anglerfish, and the data was corrupted on it. It was that scary.
I hate it all. I hate it, man.
So, Jimmy, how many pairs of underwear did you go through when you met the anglerfish?
Well, I had to go to Target at like 11 p.m. to buy more. The washing machine couldn't take it anymore. It was like, mercy, buy more. Oh, Lord.
Gosh. Yeah.
It's this doesn't sound that scary as we're talking about it, but I'm telling you, when you get mauled by this thing, and you will get mauled unless you're Ryan and somehow can avoid it.
Yeah. Unbeknowingly. Like
I walked through it. I was like, this is like the most intense segment with just the worm. And I totally missed the anglerfish, and I felt cheated later. I had to go back and like replay that, and I was like, "Oh, that was horrifying." I'm glad I didn't experience that.
Very also different. Like a school of fish, right? There's like almost a piranha school of fich.
That's right. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, it's
yeah.
There's rarely a moment where you feel safe, and the only time you feel safe is, like you said, Justin, is when you're out in the open. Yeah. But even then, you have to keep moving.
Or when you're in an office and you have Catherine plugged in.
And all the doors locked.
Somebody, right. When you're talking to somebody. So I think that this game says a lot about relationship, because when you're talking to someone, you just feel so safe. And then they found an incredible way in the world to remove the relationship. She lives in this thing that can only be activated when it's plugged in. So whenever you pick it up, it's not like she's on the comms on the radio. She's, ceasing to exist. So yeah, she keeps saying like that it's like gaps of time are missing. It was interesting, but I was always looking forward to when I would get to talk to Catherine again.
You touched on, I think, the thing that impacted me the most in this game, which is the theme of loneliness. And for me, I think that would probably be one of the more terrifying fears I have, being absolutely alone. And I don't think about that often. I don't know that many of us really think about what it would be like to be truly, completely isolated, right? Like, we have families, we have friends, even if you're an introverted person and you don't go out much.
Speak for yourself, Jimmy.
Yeah. Well, Ryan lives in a closet, but no,
literally.
but the fear in this game, like I guess the motivation that you're playing at is, hey, I want to leave, and I'm willing to escape on this computer simulated world called the Ark in an effort to not be left down here alone. Like, I will do that before I will be left behind here. And the thought of it is terrifying. I mean, can you imagine?
My chances with the world geometry.
I know it, right? Put me in Windows 95. It can't be that bad.
No,
it can't be that slow.
I'll live in mist. I'll point and click whenever I want to walk forward.
But it is because all the creatures you're encountering in this game, aside from Catherine, are horrifying. They are not creatures you want to be around. Like, you're willing to kill them, even though the fear of being alone is that strong, or at least I was. Like, I was willing to escape or kill people just to get out of the situation of danger. But then when you're all alone and you think about the idea of like, hey, what if Catherine's not here? Like, what then? Right? You're stuck. And that is a horrible thought.
And really, it's the fate of all the robots you had met to that moment.
Yeah, no,
they
really
all
is.
couldn't connect with the reality of other people, right? Or the reality of the surroundings, which included you. And I mean, that was why I unplugged so many of them, because they were, insane. They couldn't grapple or understand or see the truth. And so I assume that that's bad. We got to unplug them because they're living in some kind of fantasy. But then it really does call into question the whole arc, plot, because that's not real. I mean, that is the point of some of the other characters in the game. They're really, in fact, the that mini series. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch that, or if you.
I unfortunately did not.
Okay, well, spoiler alert, right? The mini series theme really follows Imogen, who you play as Simon Jarrett, right? You play in her corpse in the game.
Oh, you're actually realize that. Yep.
Yeah, you're playing her corpse. So the whole mini series is about what happened in Lambda, which you don't spend any time in the game, and she really has rejected the whole ARC project because she was the one who the WoW simulated in the vivarium. And that was Catherine's inspiration for the ARC project, but to her, it just reminded her of how her copy got trapped in that small, room, and it gave her seizures for whatever reason, and she began to question whether her reality was real. And that like horrifying kind of state of things is why then she goes on her quest now to turn off the WoW, which is what kind of gives rise to the scenario at Upsilon when the power's turned off, because Imogen has done it. Now you re-inhabit her body and ironically turn it all back on again.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. But anyway, that's her motivations and why she does it. It's because she rejects the ARC project and she thinks, no, it's not for us. We are going to die, and we need to, her implication is we need to, face the reality of that.
Man. Yeah. I don't want to jump too far ahead and talk about the ARC, but I had some really funny, interesting thoughts of when you actually experience what the ARC is like, but you don't know that till a little bit later.
Right.
But my thought going into the game, like as we're playing through this whole storyline, right? We're understanding more and more the ARC is a simulated world. And Justin, you mentioned it last time. There's boundaries. Like you can't further explore anything outside of what's programmed in here.
Right.
And so I had two thoughts on that. One was a very practical thought, which is, wouldn't that experience be much like that of a video game? Hey, I want to walk off the path over here and I can't, because the programming of a game doesn't let you deviate off the path. And so in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what it would be like, right? I mean, there's boundaries to some extent that you're limited by. But then the other thing I thought about is, would that world really be that great? Because for them, it's like heaven, right? And for us, at least with our faith, we know what heaven would be like. Like we're without sin anymore, right? We're in the place as God meant it to be. And instead, when you're in the ARC, you're like, no, we're just in a box. We're still the same copies of who we are. Our personalities remain the same. People who are anxious or angry are probably still going to be anxious or angry. People who like to make jokes about Face Off are probably still going to make jokes about Face Off the whole time. Like, I mean, it's just replicating it there. And I guess in my mind, in some way, I attributed, this is just my interpretation, I had attributed throughout the game prior to seeing the ARC, it would be like a heaven-like experience. And really what it was is just like a transition point to continue humanity, but with severe limitations, I would say.
Right, in Unreal Engine version 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully Ackers wasn't invited to the ARC. Like, I feel like the arc could go downhill so fast when we know all the people that would be on the arc and how some of those situations
they're on this
went.
list. Right.
I also don't feel like Akras got scanned. Hopefully.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, but you're exactly right. You wake up in a cave and it's all nice. I mean, the only reason you're inclined to think that this is a paradise is because it's not the underwater hellscape you were just in.
It's a reference point. It's just better than what was before.
Yeah, the juxtaposition is striking.
Right. Yeah. But what happens after 100 years on that thing? You're like, I am so sick of not being able to get off this path.
Oh man. I know, the whole place feels so claustrophobic. There's that little utopian city that they're building, but you look at it and you're like, okay, I mean, that's interesting geometry, but it doesn't look very big. And the expanses, there's just nothing large about the experience. It feels very small.
It does. And I think that's on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Even when you see the arc, it just looks like it looks like a giant toolbox. I mean, it's not big. I mean, a computer can hold lots of data and everything, but I guess even as you're doing all this, you realize how small some of these things are. And then you get in the simulation, and while big, it's still not anything close to what the real world is. I mean, it is very compact compared to that. So if that's where you're going to spend the next thousands of years until your battery runs dead on your satellite.
I feel like Catherine, like a couple minutes in, is looking around and she's like, wait, where are all the other cities? Did you download the expansion pack before you're like, no? Oh no.
I know.
You're stuck when you're version 1.
Oh my goodness, when you're a programmer, you're constantly looking at your work and thinking, yeah, that needs to be improved. That needs to be improved.
Right.
I'm like, what do you do when you're now inside of it and you can no longer improve it?
Right. The sun
Catherine,
rises.
This is her own personal hell.
The sun
I'm sorry, guys. You're all looking at me. Yeah, I didn't know there'd be a bug in the physics engine that causes our coffee to slosh around the room.
I guess I did only design my bedroom and no one else's. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, what happens if it's one of those things where you get caught below the floor and you can't get out?
Exactly.
That's what I can only think of that now about that heaven, right? Like, I got stuck in the world geometry for 1,000 years.
And then the battery died.
It won't let me die in a whole different situation.
It won't let me die. It won't let me reset. Oh, gosh. I can't reload my save game.
So, I jumped ahead, and I didn't mean to, because the ending is impactful, and I feel like it's worth talking about.
The end.
And I forgot how impactful the ending was, and as I was kind of prepping for this conversation, I watched a couple Twitch players play the end and respond to it live, and that kind of grounded me again, and like, this was pretty impactful.
Yeah, they do a good job giving you the stress of the situation of launching the arc. So not only are you now in the deepest of the deep of the ocean, filled with doors that take an hour and a half to unlock while your best friend is trying to kill you.
Just hugs.
It took so long for those doors to lock. That stressed me out. But then you get to the point where you reach. Actually, this is also worth talking about. You meet the final human being in the game.
Ooh, yes, Sarah.
Yeah, you literally meet her, and it's easy to stop and think, oh, you're just like some of the others where you're part human,
right?
But I don't know if you're really there. And she is fully human, connected to a life support machine, keeping her alive,
right?
And it is like full, pure, 100% human being. And it is a striking moment after all that you've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's and what she's doing is even more surprising. Is she's safeguarding the Ark, even though she's like literally in her death chair, her deathbed.
So, I mean, that's one of the decisions, right? Like how we respond to Sarah. And that was, sort of an emotional one, but honestly, like the easiest decision of the whole game for me, because, she asks us to disconnect her from the life support. She asks us to kill her. Or rather,
and you
just
said,
kind of like,
no way.
yeah. I'm leaving the door open.
You selfish.
I just met a friend. You guys will get along great.
He loves to hug. He's a great hugger.
He's kind of a face hugger, but he's a
You've
good
got lots to look forward to. We'll see you later, Sarah. But she asks us to kill her, and that was such an easy decision for me to disconnect her from that, because she has all her wits about her. She's lived by herself for, Ryan, were you saying that's 2 years?
Yeah, so the WoW's been experimenting for 2 years, and the apocalypse happened, I think, a year ago, and the power got disconnected like 6 months ago. I think that's the rough timeline.
So somewhere around
my
a
timelines
year,
were way off earlier.
She's been alive, but hanging on by a thread and completely alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I disconnected her, and then, stayed with her until she passed away.
Because she asks.
Yeah.
She says, will you stay with me?
Yeah.
You don't.
And
I was going to say real quick, I think that really goes to give you the, to differentiate the human element, right? She made the active choice to tell us her wishes, whereas most of these other people don't. And so you're left with that horrible decision that you have to make on one of their behalfs. Where she was kind enough to at least say, please do this. And so it's still not fun, but you're giving into somebody's conscious, thoughtful choice.
Yeah, the Fleshers should have been kinder.
Yeah, freaking anglerfish.
Justin, what were you going to say?
Oh, just after the whole game resolves, I kind of regretted the decision a little bit. But to have her last experience be one with someone, right? To be in community, to be seen, be heard, be cared about. And I'm assuming she's on the Ark too. But not that version of her. But that was a pretty touching, but also really easy. Oh, because of what we had experienced. I knew what we had been through the entire game, and I didn't want that for her.
Right.
So it felt like a really easy decision. But it was interesting when we find out later, that she was partially responsible, or at least in the room, right? When Catherine was killed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so she was probably racked by guilt and just the weirdness of that whole situation. So yeah, she was holding on to the Ark, but yeah, I don't fully understand why, as opposed to sending it off.
So my understanding is they got all the way to the gun.
Right.
And then one guy started questioning whether they should go through with shooting it because of the potential of the Ark to get destroyed on the way out of the gun. Mm-hmm. So it became a question of, do they keep the Ark underwater for 100 years as it runs on its power and batteries? Or do they launch it into the stars and it goes for a couple thousand years with the power of the sun helping it along? And of course, the one option to keep it underwater is likely safer because their bunkers are not going to get swamped. Right. Of course, there's the potential that WoW could get it. And no one's really thinking about that. But then there's the second question of whether it's worth the risk to get it out. And I think that revolved around more of this like poetic idea that like, no, it's in the stars. It's this idea that this is just a poetic gesture. It's not really about the people or the life or the simulation that was built. It's just about like humanity on its deathbed launched a memento into the stars beyond its planet that died.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't find that very compelling, right? Like I'm not choking up by the gesture.
Right. And it would have been one thing if it would have only been activated by the sun. You know, if it had been solar powered.
Right. If there was like a practical reason for it to work only in the stars.
Yeah. Or if there were some window to the outside, you know, so if people in the Ark could see the stars in the solar system versus all the monsters that are underwater, you know, there are different reasons to do different things, but yeah, I think the biggest interesting thing about that decision for me is, you know, using the gun is higher risk and higher reward. So longer lifespan, but you know, possibly structural damage and any number of things. So
see, 100 years is a human lifespan, right?
Yeah.
So they could have given everyone at least that. And 1,000 years or 2,000 years is certainly a long time, but even that comes to an end.
It's still finite, right? And I don't know why, but when you think about 1,000 or 2,000 years in space for some reason, and I think because what you're starting to do is compare it to the vastness of space, that really doesn't seem like that long of a period of time.
Of course.
And also, I'm 99% sure my missile was going to blow up upon launch because it took me a solid 5 to 10 minutes to load that sucker. If they had just let me like throw it like I've thrown every other object in this game. Remember, I was caught in the apartment for like 45 minutes, like just launching stuff. I was like, just give me the missile. I can toss it in its little thing. Oh man, it took me forever to load that for some reason. And in the process, it was smacking around into all this stuff, but that was a very stressful experience. This game
Justin, I think it's telling that like the whole gesture of sending the Ark into space wasn't very emotionally resonating in the end, right?
Right.
But what was spending those last moments with Sarah or getting cut off from Catherine at the very end of the game.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I feared was going to happen in this ending. And
it did.
And we saw it, right? We saw it earlier in the game when you transfer consciousness from one robot body to another, you're really not doing a one-way cut and paste, you're copying. So the old is left and the new gets to go. And in this scenario, you find out that you are the copy that is left in the chair while your other copy blasts off into the stars. And that is a horrible, horrible feeling.
And the whole game had set us up for that idea.
Absolutely.
And Catherine even says to your character, you know, it's not my fault if you're not listening. I can't be blamed for your ignorance. And so
I'm gonna push back at Catherine on that.
Ooh, okay.
I'm telling you, there is some question in the miniseries about whether Catherine is like kind of not totally there. Ooh. And I think the idea is that Catherine is kind of like an engineer and she's super into the programming and the numbers and maybe the poetry of it, but not really into the relationships.
Yeah.
And so Catherine has been like so fixated on this project that she hasn't like really enjoyed her companionship with you, right? And it's only at the very end that you get just a little bit of banter between the characters that suggests they're becoming friends. And of course, it's teeing you up for the disappointment. But the fact is that Catherine has been using these copies as tools. She's been using herself as a tool.
Yes.
And I think that's a mistreatment of all of what people were meant to be. And so it's no wonder that Simon's confused at the end because he's been engaging in this kind of tooly way of thinking about people instead of being able to engage with like, hey, look, you know, it's enough that you and I get to share this moment together because we're all we have left.
Yeah.
And how can we make this as pleasant as possible. Like what Sarah says when she says, "Will you stay with me?" Right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the other option. And
yeah,
it is.
It's a very contrasting experience between Sarah's death and Catherine zapping out. You have this pleasant, emotional goodbye with Sarah, and Catherine goes out with you two going at it verbally.
Yeah. And I just watched The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix, and there's a couple of people that, for one reason or another, relationship has ended without resolution, and so that was how I felt about Catherine. Where was it? I'm trying to interpret what happened. It seemed like with the firing of the gun, since it was in disrepair, and they had made a couple comments about that water leaked in and then was exposed, like the machines broke under pressure. Was that kind of what happened?
They just kind of shorted out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that being left unresolved in that relationship was hard. And for that to be the beat that we fade to black and roll credits, it just leaves you with it. Because I don't think it even hit me until the music started playing. And I was like, oh, that's it.
That's
the end.
And thank God, Ryan, you told us to watch the credits, because rarely will I stick through credits on a video game. A movie, Marvel films have trained me to sit through credits. So it's like the Pavlovian dog trick. Like, I will sit through credits now, even if nothing happens. Video games are a different story. But I'm very glad you did tell me that, because otherwise I wouldn't probably have seen the arc for the other copy of Simon that makes it.
Yeah.
And, I wonder, is this arc experience with Catherine in the arc going to be any better? Because the whole thing has been this poetic kind of, almost artistic send up. But now you got to spend 2,000 years with this woman who has been treating people like tools. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to go very well.
Yeah, I mean,
we find out really quickly she's way too attached to us, and we're like, "Oh, Catherine, I want to talk to other AI."
Right. Let's move in together. No.
I liked when you were just in my little Omni tool and I could turn you on and off. I want that kind of relationship.
Gosh, dude, the thought of like Siri coming to life and wanting to hang out with me is just totally stressful.
But you're not wrong. That is exactly kind of how it's presented. You're walking around with your Omni tool like your phone that talks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the ability to turn it off and turn it on and ask questions or converse for help and then get back to what you're doing. Not anymore.
So we're like at an hour, and I want to get to takeaways here, right?
Right.
Because I'm super compelled by where our conversation took us, contrasting the mission of the arc, which seems to be this reduction of people into tools to achieve some kind of send-off for humanity without really any thoughtful regard to what it means to exist in these mediums, especially at any length of time. And then, contrast that with the WoW, which is non-thinking. It's in fact, they describe it as a kind of primitive artificial intelligence that merely follows the protocols and the desires of the people who made it. And those people were desiring to keep, humanity alive. And so the WoW begins iterating on this, and it too is kind of operating off of this same human play script that would treat existence like a tool to keep the biology or the soma of it alive. And then you've got these brief glimpses we have on the connection between two characters, a real legitimate connection between Sarah and Simon at the end of her life, or between Catherine and Simon as they're bantering while they're loading the space gun. And you see this glimpse of what could have been. The ability for these various people caught in an apocalypse to share a meaningful connection with each other. And you get this too when they're coming down on the space on the abyss elevator, right? They start talking about their experience, and I don't forget where it was, like Hong Kong or something, watching the smog or something. Yeah. Those brief moments of connection, I think, you're playing a video game, so your objective is to go from point A to B to C to D, right? And you're treated to whatever dialogue they give you along the way. But you're left with the impression that these characters have been so fixated on this mission that they have lost sight of what it really means to be human. And they might have remembered that somewhere along the way. And you expect that maybe Simon 3, who's left in the ruins of the space gun, may remember that now that his connection to Catherine is lost. Yeah. Because we all have these these existential crises, right? These moments where we realize our loneliness, and it puts things in perspective. I think this game is just trying to bring us into that realization along with Simon, without having to take us through our own apocalypse, or our own death to do it.
Yeah. And you said so many thoughts so well. There's a lot to be said for accepting death in a lot of these scenarios. And for this storyline, we see so many people who were aiming to extend that. Now, the difference here is it's not just, hey, I'm going to die. It's, hey, humanity is getting wiped out. And so I think their motivations are a little stronger than a person just wanting to extend their lifespan. I think their motivations are more so, hey, we want to keep the human race alive. But of course, the game then begs the question: what makes a human, right? How much of a robot or a machine versus the flesh? Where is that in between? Where do you draw that line? And then you can play the moral argument as you will. And
by turning off the WoW, you pretty much took out your really only shot for humanity to exist at the long scale.
Right. Even though humans don't probably look the same as they did before with the WoW doing that. And so what we're seeing is, as we climb aboard the Ark at the end and we do this whole mission, is this was in their minds, their best definition or shot at propelling humanity out. And really all it was a glorified send-off, in my opinion. It was an extension. It was, hey, I'll give you a little extra time. And by the way, you are a limited version of what you were before, even though the hellscape back on Earth was no better to live in from a comfort standpoint by any stretch. But I think that goes to show a fear of death, right? That's what they were pushing to do is, oh, well, we don't want to let that go. We want to keep that out there. And I think you see in Sarah's death, there's meaning in it, and it's okay. And we will all reach that point. And it's tough to accept, and it's not fun, but all the same, I don't know that I want to be stuck in Windows 95 for 2,000 years with Siri talking to me. And, like, sometimes I can understand when you see somebody who's lived a long and fulfilling life and they say, hey, you know what? It's okay. I'm ready to go. I know where I'm going. I'm done. And that's a tough thing to wrestle with. But I think that's kind of the emotional levers that were being pulled for me was the ability to accept that, or do you kick the can down the road in a different scale?
Yeah. For me, I ended up thinking a fair amount about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Because that's one of the, classic pieces of literature, period. But it deals a lot with some of the same ideas, like what is the monster? When it's a collection of random body pieces and there's some electricity that gets the neurons pumping again. But is that a person? What is our responsibility for it? Right. And, I love that in the novel, it's very articulate, and it dives into all kinds of those problems, so it's not like almost any of the adaptations and everything, but the WoW is making these combinations of mind and body. And so I think this game kind of re-underlined for me that I really believe in a trichotomy, that there's mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and consciousness. Mind, body, and something immaterial, and that all three of those things are tied together. Because even in a dichotomy world, even where it's just mind and body, there was something really bad about switching bodies. I did not like that.
Horrible.
Yeah, it did not feel right. And so I think that it underlined for me, the trichotomy, that I believe there's something more to us than the biology and the electricity. And then the arc, like we've been talking about, the arc gets at an idea of heaven. Simon sacrifices his arm to defeat the WoW, and then he has it on the arc, right? He's restored on the arc, and that's cool. But then I think, Jimmy, you were saying that, and I said, I hope Akers isn't there. If people were mad, if people were anxious, if people were, mentally unhealthy, like, if you were right, that Catherine was not
really needy and annoying and awful.
Right. They're copied and they're there, so it's not heaven. It's not a perfected state,
It's just like we hopped from here to here.
Right.
All the
and
same as we
hop
bodies.
Body, there's maybe a new body, but yeah. So I think just for me, this game reiterated that I think there's more to us than our biology and the electricity, and I think that for heaven to actually be heaven, it has to be better than the Ark.
Yes.
Especially when you realize that there are probably 2 Catherines on the Ark.
I was thinking about that.
No.
And it would be a bad time for Catherine to say, by the way, I loaded an anglerfish in the waters here.
Right, and there's no bridge. Good luck getting to town.
And or everyone. Catherine is like, I also uploaded the WoW. I figured it would really be helpful with keeping the environment. No!
So a little bit of trivia. That boat, there is a boat in the water to send you off to the floating city. And if you were to clip out and see the boat, it is labeled Theseus.
Yes, that came up in our first conversation.
No
the
way.
Ship of Theseus.
Dude, I'm so glad you said it, because I was gonna say Theseus. I forget. I always say it wrong. That's awesome, though.
Yeah. So they're thinking all this stuff with us. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna take it one further, Rye.
There's a whale named
Now
Willie.
that we're done with our October pairing, why don't you introduce us to our November pairing?
Gentlemen, you have tasked me with so great a privilege to share with you the bounty of a November pairing to go with your thankful hearts. And as a good sommelier will do, we're going to give you a range of experiences over the course of this Videogame Sommelier podcast. And so the next experience takes a just 180 from this horror game, and but yet still manages to pair a through line, which is that we are having another nautical experience.
Ooh.
We are going to, I believe I believe it may be the 17th century or the 18th century, aboard a ship that has arrived in the harbor, some English harbor, and no one is alive on it. And so you are the insurance inspector equipped with a magical pocket watch.
Is your name Jake from State Farm?
And yes, Jake, the magical insurance inspector, is to determine the fates of all 40-some crew members on board. Ooh. And what happened to them, how they died. And so he uses his magical pocket watch to relive the last 5 seconds of each of their deaths.
Whoa.
And through the use of this device, he then has to make Sherlock Holmesian deductions about who these people are. And so this is really a game of observation and deduction and just intuition. And so you are best to avoid all spoilers and to really just use your brain to figure this one out. But it is a special game because there are no other video game wines like it. And it is a common critique that when you get done, you're like, oh, I wish I could drink it all over again. And unfortunately, there are no other vintages that compare. So, yeah, enjoy this one-of-a-kind November experience.
And what did you say the game was called?
Oh, yeah, that little tidbit. The Return of the Obra Dinn. Wow. Animated.
Look at those 4K graphics, y'all.
So, interestingly, this is a 3-dimensional game that has been rendered with only a single color.
Love it.
Right. This reminds me of my very first gaming experience on my Game Boy.
I know. This is very Game Boy-esque. I love it.
It does. So you will be delighted. It's a technical marvel, given the graphical style, and that also aids in the challenge of the game because you're having to discern what am I looking at here, and that sounds bad, but
it's so pixelated, man.
You're navigating it in 3D space, so you're actually using light and shadow to figure out certain things about the images you're seeing, and it's awesome. So fun. It's so fun.
And you gave us a little insight that you helped make this game even better, and so you'll have to share that anecdote when we
will
at an appropriate time when we're playing next month. So
yes, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say for us and for anyone that will join us in playing, is there a point that you want us to get to before 2 weeks from now, or is this the kind of game where it's just play the whole game?
So you might be inclined to just play the whole game through. I think it takes somewhere between 5 and 7 hours. Okay. We're returning to the shorter form of game. If you do anything, complete the game once, even if you don't complete it completely. There's 2 endings to the game. There's the ending that you get to when you
doesn't. No, I'm kidding.
You'll see. Anyway, there's more or less an extended ending of the game,
cool.
And so
very cool.
If you get to that, you'll want to play the extended ending of the game, and by all means do so. But we might save the discussion of that extended ending for the second awesome. Podcast. Yeah,
awesome.
Sweet, man. I'm pumped. No more anglerfish.
Right? No more anglerfish.
We get
different
to be above the
nautical monsters.
If I go underwater, Ryan, I swear I'm gonna just cuddle Sandy so hard she's gonna smack me. Stop! You'll be like, bothering me,
Ryan. That was for you.
For you. All right, guys. Well,
so good.
Our next conversation will be in 2 Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of November, which is the 4th.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't believe it's already almost November.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
In the spirit of this game and in the coming weeks, happy Halloween, guys. Happy Halloween to our fellow game connoisseurs. And I'll see you guys.
If only we could dress as robots and anglerfish, right?
Dude, that's what I wear to work every day.
I'm in.
I am a robot, so.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Wonderful talking with you guys. I'm going to sign us off, and I'm going to leave us with the logo for the Obra Dinn.
Rock and roll.
All right. I'll see you guys next time.